Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Good journey, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge, only Galactic Star Cruiser Superfan podcast. I'm Galactic Star Cruiser Superfan Christine, and with me are...
Superfan Drew.
And Superfan Martin.
Well, today we have another fantastic gathering of the Sublight Circle. Martin, tell us about it today.
Oh, absolutely, Christine. We had so much fun talking with our first group of listeners in the Sublight Circle that we've decided, let's do a sequel. As Star Wars fans, we do love our sequels. And Drew, can you tell us a little bit about this?
I can. We actually went with new questions for this Sublight Circle, which was really good. I will say that we do talk a fair amount of spoilers in this. So if you're spoiler adverse, this probably isn't the episode for you. We have a back catalog that's got lots of things you can listen to, and we'll have a forward catalog that will have lots of things as well. So I just want to let people know that this one has a bit more spoilers than usual.
Spoiler alert. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take it away with the Sublight Circle.
Welcome to everybody who's joining us today in the Sublight Circle. We are so excited to have you. One of the things we wanted to start out talking about is how you initially heard about Galactic Star Cruiser. And I want to start out with the one and only, you've heard her name a dozen times or more, Patty. Our Patty.
I think I heard about it. I heard it through, I think it was StarWars.com, but I never thought I would go on it. I didn't think it was going to be something that would happen. I've purposely not read much about it, or when I heard about it, that was it. I didn't really go into any more because I didn't want to spoil it just in case.
Mm-hmm. And what did you think when you first heard about it? I mean, as the news started to come out and talk a little bit more about what they thought it was going to be.
I do remember something about hotel, and I was like, a hotel? I'm like, I don't think it should be called a hotel. They had to call it something. I'm sure it was just a start and not a good start. But I was excited because I've been a fan for so long, and I was like, wow, to experience something like that would be awesome.
Well, why don't we go over to you, Alex? Can you tell us a little bit about when you first heard about Galactic Star Cruiser and what your reaction was?
My family, I would say, is a Star Wars family, and I originally heard about it from my mother. Oh. So we're also, this combination of Disney and Star Wars was a big deal for my family. I'm 51 years old this year. Disney World is 51 years old this year. The first time I went to Disney World was when I was 2 years old. And, growing up, my parents would take my sister and I to Disney World. We would camp. In the 70s, you could camp at Disney World, and you'd even have Disney babysitters who would come and take care of you. Like, it was fabulous.
Wait, what?
Wow. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was cool. It was super neat. And then, your parents would just take off and go to Disney World. It was amazing. Well, you got to play in the campground with these Disney babysitters. It was cool. So neat. And then, I was a huge Star Wars fan as a kid growing up, 70s kid. As we've all gotten older, my family has started to do family reunions at Disney World. So a few years ago, we did like the whole Animal Kingdom thing, where we did the safari and everything. And it's my parents, my mom puts it together. My sister comes, and it's my wife and I. And so the second it came out over the newswire, I think my mom actually ended up getting an email from Disney. Hey, you are interested in this? The text went out, and we all were like, we are going. We are all in. It is, for years at the holidays, we would get both Star Wars and Star Trek action figures and take them all out of the box as adults, and then have a rubber band war where we would knock them all down. It's this kind of thing. And so the second the news hit the wire, she was on top of it, and we were all like, yeah, I didn't even know about the ads or the marketing. I'm like, yeah, Star Wars, Disney, it's a thing. We're going.
So I have to ask, when you shot Spock with the rubber band, did somebody ask, This is not logical.
He's dead, Jim.
The jokes. Yes. Well, but then you get the next generation, and it's everybody aims for Captain Picard. It's just how it goes.
Sure. Well, what was your initial reaction? I mean, you obviously were in, but were you excited when you saw that Disney was doing the Star Wars experience, or?
Well, and so my wife and I, we do, we've done, I wouldn't say that we're like big time LARPers, but we've done some Dungeons and Dragons. We go to Ren fairs and we're like, this is going to be pretty awesome. It could also be a hot mess. So what's the worst it could be? And we figured like our minimum expectation was Star Wars Ren Fair.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, we always dress up for Ren fairs. And so we're like, okay, we're going to do exactly the same. And if it's more, great. If it's not, fine. And whoa, was it like not that? It was so much more.
Mark, what were your thoughts?
So mine was kind of a similar thing, running into kind of the early marketing, I guess. And I was in basically at a baseline, like anything Star Wars, I'm interested in, been a lifelong fan. And then when it comes to the Disney angle, it's like, I know that they overdo things. And I wasn't a huge like Disney file or anything ahead of this. I also wasn't one of those people that like was worried when Disney picked up the IP. So I was kind of like in the middle ground, but I know they do things and they do it to a high level. So I basically was just running on faith. Really, I think my wife brought me one of the, just like a still square image, like Instagram, Facebook ad, the very basic stuff. And I remember my first reaction being like, man, this should be a video, because that's kind of just how my brain works as a videographer. And then I ignored kind of all of the criticism on Reddit and everything about the marketing, because I was just, like I said, kind of running on faith. And then eventually my wife suggested that we should go for my birthday. And once that was on the table, like all bets were off for me. I was like, well, yes, like the only thing keeping me from doing this is the slight fact that I might be dragging you along, or that it might be too expensive. But like if I'm getting, carte blanche here, then let's do it. So I think we might have gone to like a Goodwill that day to start looking for like brown shirts. So I had no idea what I was going to do, but it's like, we're going to need brown stuff. So like, let's get some khakis.
So I know when Patty, I know when Patty, Nicole, and Brian went, but Alex, when did you go on the Star Cruiser?
When did I go? May 24th.
How about you, Mark?
That was July 7th.
Nicole and Brian, when did you first learn about the Star Cruiser experience?
So I remember we have an annual tradition on Christmas morning that we are at my parents' house and we watch the Christmas Disney special with the parade and all of that. And I remember the year that they had the first ad for Galaxy's Edge, and then when they had the ad for the Star Cruiser. I remember Brian and I just looking at each other. We're like, we don't care what it costs. We're going. Like, we're going. Brian, do you have anything you'd add to that?
I just sort of remember seeing the ads for it, and I think you turned to me, with your eyes huge, and said, "We're doing that, right?" And I believe, if I can remember, my exact response was, "Duh." And we were in from the start.
Well, it's just kind of interesting because the first time that Disney even hinted it publicly was the 2017 D23, where they announced Galaxy's Edge, and they just briefly, as an aside, there will be a Star Wars, resort hotel or something. And again, they had no details, no name, no pricing, no anything. But it's just kind of funny, the slow burn of information that kind of leaked out. And we were just like salivating over every little thing. Yeah. But the one thing I really want to just give Disney some credit on is the first real pieces that we all saw were these concept art pieces. And can we give them some credit for how incredibly close they got? Yeah. If you compare the concept art to the real thing, it's absolutely breathtaking how close those two things are. The
bridge, especially, like the bridge, like that was dead on.
The atrium, the crown of Corellia. It's almost a photograph, accuracy to what they ended up with. And we were looking at those images going, is this really what they're going to end up with? And
like, really, Chewbacca's just going to run around the atrium? Okay. And there he was.
There he was. So,
but they are missing one droid.
Yes, they are.
They are.
Oh, that's true.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
I think that's part of why I had so much faith, because I saw the concept art for Galaxy's Edge, and then I saw pictures. I had never been. My first trip, the Halcyon took me to Batu for the first time. So, but I've seen pictures, obviously, and wanted to go, and I saw the execution, just like you're saying. So the concept art, I felt like when I saw the stuff come out for the ship, I was like, I can believe this. Right. I'm bought in a little extra, because they're not messing around with when it comes to the concept art. They don't release stuff, at least officially, until it is fairly close to what I think they think is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, was that your first time at Batu as well? Is that why you gave the thumbs up?
Yes, first time for us. It was fabulous.
Did you lose your minds like we did our first time there?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a very special way to do the whole thing for the first time. I'd been as like a kid, but also going as an adult, being able to drink, for instance, is nice.
Sure.
Knowing what a resort experience is worth is nice. So yeah, it was super cool. It's mind-boggling, actually.
I just wanted to say it wasn't my first time to Batu. My first time to Batu was with Martin and Christine, actually. I had gone with them, and I just about lost my mind.
we took Patty on an exploratory first visit just to get her familiar with the data pad and the games and whatnot. And I defy anyone that's we're all fans here, is you're going to get misty anytime you see the Falcon. When you turn the corner and you see the Falcon, man, it's onion time, because it's just magnificent.
Unbelievable.
It's magnificent. I mean, to me, what they accomplished. I mean, we love Disney. We love their theme parks, but Galaxy's Edge is so next level. Like, you feel like you are in Star Wars, constantly.
Brian, how many times did I cry the first time we went?
Like 12, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on par.
Okay, so we know that everybody here went with somebody. What do you think? I shouldn't say what. Do you think going with friends or family or spouses enhances the experience? I mean, could you truly enjoy this experience if it was just you? Let's start with Nicole.
So we were there, Brian and I, for our 19th wedding anniversary.
Woohoo!
And when the word started getting out like wildfire that was the case, I would say it enhanced our experience about 27-fold because we got all these special experiences that started happening. But, I'll let Brian chime in on this too. But like the fact that we share this as such a love, we have like literally taken martial arts lightsaber lessons together in the past, and been on Star Wars cruises in the past and all of that. And to experience this together, I think was more than I ever could have imagined.
So I think there would be two separate experiences doing it alone or together with others. Doing it alone, you certainly get all of the joy and the experience, but you also get to pay more attention to other guests and see them getting their moments and their private interactions. Just seeing their faces light up really kind of warms the heart. But doing it together, my excitement bounced off of Nicole's excitement, which bounced off of my excitement, and it just spiraled out of control. So there's positives to both, but when we do it again, it will be at least the two of us and likely a couple of friends so that we can watch them experience it the first time.
Yeah, believe me, I've not forgotten the May 3rd, 4th date that we know that certain heroes are going to be on. So it's in the back of my mind.
Oh my God, so tempting.
Move it to the front of your mind.
So Alex, I think you had mentioned that you went with a pretty large group. So how about you? How did the going in a group enhance your experience?
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I think you could go, by yourself and have a fabulous time. But yeah, we had a group of 5 my parents, who are in their 70s, basically spent their entire time in the Sublight Lounge.
Love it.
And they had a fabulous tailored adventure to them. The cast came to them, and they had just an amazing time. My wife and I, Amy, we said we were all in. We were dressed up, and we did it all. We tried to do as much as we can. We had a fabulous time. And then my sister, I think, was kind of in between, because she's my older sister, so she kind of went between our two sets of groups. But having a bigger group was fabulous, because as you've said on the podcast before, it gives you people to talk to, both as you're closing the Sublight Lounge, but also in real time as you're sitting in the atrium on the data pad trying to catch up, and you're sitting with people you get to begin to understand the vastness of the experience, and that everybody is getting a different story, and you don't have to do it all. Mm-hmm. So for example, my sister, she ended up getting 2 different endings. That you're not supposed. I've heard that's not supposed to happen, but she was in the right place at the right time, and then just run it. And so when you have more people, you're able to see more and different things, and it's just so fabulous to be able to say to somebody you're with, "Hey, let's go get pictures with the stormtroopers," and then you see them walking down the stairs out of the atrium. You say, "Let's go follow them," and you do, and a whole story unfolds in front of you.
That's cool. How did you guys arrange did you have a suite, or how did you guys arrange your accommodations?
We got 2 regular cabins right next to each other. And because my mom basically she's retired, so she took it on as her job to get us the entire tickets and everything. She sat on the phone day one of reservations all day long. Awesome. And said to Disney, we got to have these 2 cabins on this day right next to each other. And it all ended up working out, and it was fabulous.
Cool. 3 cheers for Mom.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mark, how was it for you?
Yeah, so I think I agree with Brian and Alex, and I think everybody, in that it's definitely good to have somebody to experience it with, because you get to experience someone else's experience.
Sure. Yeah.
You get to see people seeing things, and that for me was particularly special, because my wife doesn't do a lot of role playing and stuff. That's not really what we do. I play Dungeons and Dragons and things, so in a small way have done things like that, but don't dress up. We like to go to Ren Fair and eat a turkey leg and walk around in my sneakers. I haven't dressed up for those kind of things, so it was a bit out of our comfort zone, but not something that we weren't willing to take a shot at. So having that to bounce off each other, and also somebody to latch onto when you're okay, this is the first in the atrium, when they're and the first, everything is open now. The characters are walking around, and you're looking at each other what do we do? That is really important. At least it was for me, and the way that I function, because I almost had an absolute panic attack just with the freedom that comes with something like live action role playing. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I would also think that if I went alone, I think I don't know if I would feel like I was alone, because I would just have that experience with some strangers, and it would just be kind of on to me to make a few little relationships. And that didn't turn out to be hard. I didn't think that would be part of our experience. So I would be willing to go back alone, or maybe do Sweet Mate Finder or something. If I don't think it would be bad at all to go by yourself.
And I'll confess that we're arranging a conversation with the Sweet Meat Finders to talk about this very thing, because I went back and forth and wondering how good it would be if I went by myself. But then T.C. Conway, a previous guest, said he had an even better time the second time. And so I'm really curious if it's required to have somebody with you.
Yeah.
See, I actually defy anyone to go to Galactic Star Cruiser and not make friends with someone.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean, Nicole and Brian, I'm looking at you going, my God, we love you two. We met you you were some cool cats on the cruise, and we're we want to know these people.
Yeah, we saw you planetside, and then we got to hang out with you at dessert, which was so much fun, and that was, we had a great time.
But I mean, even our first cruise, same thing. I could name off a lot of people on our first cruise that I'm those were cool people. You just talk. I mean, everyone it's an instant connection with people. You can go up and talk to anyone. I don't care where they're from. I don't care, age, whatever. You can have a connection with anyone on Galactic Star Cruiser almost. I mean, it's...
Well, believe me, I had full-on conversations with Chewie in the Sublight Lounge that still defy logic to this day that we had as much conversation. But Annie remembered me when we saw him on Batu the other day, which is pretty funny. But
That's cool.
We've told so many people that this experience is basically as immersive as you are willing to make it.
100%.
Like the more you engage, and I would say that with the characters, obviously, but I think, Christine, Patty, Drew, and Martin, we equally were like, these are our people as we met you. And we were like, our people, and like to find folks that are like willing to spend the money for this experience, go all out, cry in green makeup. I'm looking at you, Christine. Like, be fully engaged in something like this that has had this amount of meaning for those of us that are, old enough to, Brian and I were very young when we saw the first movie, but still remember it to this day, being in the theater and seeing it. And that was our childhood on. And to be able to like just instantly know 97% of the people that are going to be there with you are in that same place.
And that's what I think too was so quickly comforting whenever you get on board is, I've said it a dozen times, or probably at least 25. How many episodes have we had?
This will be, yeah.
Is that, before we went, I had never experienced any of this, role playing and cosplaying and all that kind of stuff. And it's that anxious feeling of I'm going to get on board and I'm going to do it wrong, or I'm going to screw this up for somebody else, or somebody else is going to look at me and be like, woo, why is this girl on board? That kind of thing. This community that has taken it upon himself to engage in Galactic Star Cruiser is so open and willing to accept everybody. It doesn't matter if you come in costume or in makeup, or if you have the best costume or a costume at all. If you're participating in some fashion, then you're one of us and we're one of you. And so let's just go through this journey together and make it the best possible journey for you and everyone else around you. It's still mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Miss Patty, tell us.
She's like, I went with some jerks my first one.
Those guys.
You guys made it so incredible. I could probably do it either way just because I'm a very open person. I'm not introverted. I talk to everybody. It was a special, I was celebrating my 60th birthday, and to have them like, you want to come with us on the Galactic Star Cruiser? And when I heard the date, I was like, oh, heck yeah. I'm like, yes, I'm in. But just to have folks that love what I love, and I just watching everyone and watching my friends having a blast and helping me through it, going there for the first time. And, sometimes I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't even know what I'm doing. And then, of course, they'll jump in and help. And it was just amazing. But I could imagine myself, because I'm definitely going back. I could probably do that. I would love to be with my friends, though. It's just a special thing.
Well, sure, friends do make things better. That's certainly clear. But again, I think this experience is one that, as we've all been talking about, the people who are going on this are, as Nicole said, are already your people. So I definitely think that I know I could have just an incredible time going by myself, and would get into it and would be able to still find the moments that I wanted to find. But having you guys there to talk about was obviously choice.
One last comment on this is I would actually encourage, if someone does go by themselves, make it a point to reach out to other people, because the more people you can discuss what's going on, the more things that you can figure, oh, I didn't get an invite to that, but I know about it, so I can it's a much bigger menu of options if you can just be discussing it with multiple people. So, yeah, even if you do go by yourself, talk to your suite mates, talk to your fellow passengers, and you will get a larger buffet of options.
I think you've got an in if you go by yourself.
Yeah.
And what better excuse to talk to strangers than what's going on in your game? And that's what they want to talk about. So,
but it's an interesting
it might be an
concept.
advantage.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept when you think about you're sharing a room with someone you don't know. You get to know them, in the group. I think I was listening to the chat. You get to meet people, talk to people. That isn't anything I'm worried about because I've done that for years for other conventions and things like that. But it's a little tricky for some folks because they're not sure, are they okay? I mean, but I think everyone that's going on this are our people.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, let's actually shift gears just for a moment to one of my favorite subjects is the food. And does anyone have a particular favorite, with the food, the flavor, the presentation, the buffet? I mean, what are someone's thoughts on the actual cuisine at Galactic Star Cruiser? And let's just kind of start. Let's start with Brian. What'd you think about the food?
The food was really, really good. I was going in expecting they're making food for a whole bunch of people, so it tends to be enjoyable, or supposed to be enjoyable to just about anyone. So I didn't have huge expectations, but I was surprised. It was some really good flavor combinations, some really excellent presentation. It surpassed my expectations by quite a bit.
Alex, what did you think about the food?
Well, one of the things that you talk about on this podcast a lot is like, how do you talk to people who haven't gone before? How do you talk about this? And I always start with saying, it's a high-end cruise in space.
Nice.
It's a cruise. It's a cruise in space. And so the food, you should expect it to be just like a high-end cruise in space. That was my expectation, and that should be everybody's expectation they go above and beyond. Now, me personally, my favorite food on board was both the blue and the green milk. Those I couldn't get enough, but the meals are outrageously good. The service is over the top, and everything is in theme. And so, yeah, it's just absolutely fabulous.
Mark, how about you?
I'm going to have to piggyback off of blue and green milk, as unfortunately that was the only thing I had been looking forward to so much. And I was like, you're telling me it's on tap? Like, I'm there for it. So like we ran straight to the dining room after, looking around. We had been waiting in line. We were like the second group or something. So we had a chance to frantically take cell phone pics holo scans before other people got on board. And then I'm like, let's get some of that milk. And I was overwhelmed by all of the flavors of the milk. So I didn't end up liking that. But everything else, again, like no cruise experience, no real Disney resort experience. I was having the same sensation. I was like, okay, this is a really nice buffet lunch. That's pretty good. But I didn't realize it was heralding things to come. So I was completely taken aback on the second night when I was literally in tears over the steak.
Yeah. Yes.
And I look over and the cell phone's out. And I'm like, can we not holo scan me crying over a steak?
Over a steak, right now? Yes.
But it happened. I didn't even know until I got back, and I'm on one of the spoiler Facebook groups or something, and someone was like, yeah, well, when I got my second course, and I was like, what? I had no idea. And again, if I had been on some Disney cruise, I would know. It is supposed to be a cruise, which means you can ask and receive, and that is normal. But I'm just kind of well, it's what the game is, so I'll just eat this one and cry about it. But I totally would have got a second one. I didn't know that was an option. That was definitely my favorite.
We Martin and I both on the first cruise, we both had second helpings of the bantha beef, and so we just kept it coming.
It's funny, before we realized that they bring more, there was one piece left on the platter, and it's Drew's my brother.
You guys both got your lightsabers out?
Oh, exactly. It was the spaghetti westerns. No, wah, wah, wah. And we're both looking at each other, looking at the beef.
It's the Boba Fett theme song starts playing.
Exactly. Well, I know, Patty, as a vegetarian, there were some concerns initially to make sure that, were you going to have that same experience on the cruise? What did you think about the food?
I was amazed. I was nervous, but I'm like, Disney's been really good. Anytime I've been there, they always have something. And I can tell you, but they made things for me and they were delicious. We'd be sitting at the table and here comes these blue shrimp. I'm like, yeah. There comes that steak you're talking about. Then I think there was some fish. And I'm like, And then he comes up with something special for me and he goes, this is a blah, blah, blah. And the flavors, everything was so good. They make you feel so it's so nice because when you tell them that, they make sure they take care of you. It was really amazing. Everything, and I have to tell you, the food in the Sublight Lounge was delicious.
Yes, agreed.
And here's a pro tip. I mean, I didn't realize this our first cruise. Go figure that when you're drinking in the Sublight Lounge, the food is free.
Free.
Order all you want.
Everything you want in there, you can just have it.
Right.
Well, now I have to go back.
Yes.
Nicole, that
May
face
3rd
right
and
there,
4th.
the face Nicole made was the face I made when I'm like, wait, we don't have to pay for this. Is like just, we got to pay for the drink, but give me more of that cheese platter in the Sublight Lounge. That cheese, I do not share that cheese. That cheese platter is for me. And anyway, Nicole, what was your favorite food item on the cruise?
So I'm stuck between two. One would be the sort of empanadas they brought out the first night, where they had the green and the purple and they were those, and like the 4 different sauces. Mind-blowingly good. That, and so we were at that captain's table, which if folks are debating it, oh my gosh, if you can get it, do it, because it's like $30 a person more to be at the captain's table. But the experience of that was fantastic. But the second night, I actually did the wine pairing with the full intergalactic meal, and it was no joke. The wine that they brought out, like it was not an inexpensive way to experience that, but it was 100% worth it to go along with that. And just there was also some chocolate mousse, something, I don't know, lava thing that just melted my brain. I have no idea what it was called or which meal it came with, but I just know that it melted my brain.
So speaking of melting your brain, should we travel to the actual Sublight Lounge and talk about drinks and food there?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
So does anybody have a favorite drink from the Sublight Lounge?
I really
Brian?
liked.
I'm sorry, love.
I really liked the crate reactor. I gotta tell you that.
Oh my gosh!
And if you're not there with 3 other people, they actually serve single servings of the crate reactor. It's not the cool, thing that they presentation.
Oh,
Yeah, that is something that definitely want to try on the next cruise.
Patty, your favorite drink?
I think it was called the Mark of the Huntress.
Yes,
That
yes,
was
it
so
was.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
It was so good. So good. Yeah.
I predated Crate Reactor, although I would have been tempted to try to convince just the 2 of us to just have 2 straws each, if that had been an option back
Which
then.
I think
but
they will do.
It looks very cool. I don't remember the drink names because I think I had 1 of each, and by the time that was over, I was literally like, I need to see the menu again to be entirely reminded of all of the drinks.
Yeah, what I would label as my favorite drink was probably the anniversary champagne that they brought out. I think
cheating.
It was the second evening. we spent not a lot of time in the Sublight Lounge, but a couple times a day when there were in between story elements, we would just go and went in the same corner booth. And that one particular time, we sat down and just a couple minutes later, some music started playing that was different from the normal Sublight Lounge music. And they brought out a couple of glasses of anniversary champagne, and that was pretty special.
That's cool.
Awesome.
That's
But the
amazing.
even better drink was the one that we had after that, where we got to buy Chewy a drink, and he sat with us in the Sublight Lounge for quite
That's
a while.
cool.
So,
That's crazy. I looked it up. Cloud of Bespin was my favorite, but I had to Google it. So I feel like I should just log out now from the Superfan podcast.
We went and grabbed the menu, so you're just fine.
We literally have one of them.
Yeah, you can
Nice.
keep your card mark. It's all good.
Well,
Okay, cool.
For the listeners, the Cloud of Bespin is rum, lemon, Orgeat, which is almond, passion fruit, and falernum lemon foam.
Yeah, it's a very tiki flavored drink.
Oh, I can see a future episode where we try to recreate cocktails from the Sublight Lounge, and it's going to be like drunk history, but drunk Star Cruiser history.
I'm in.
That's a fantastic idea. Did anybody else purchase drinks mostly based on like costuming or their character? Because I'm pretty sure that's why I ended up with very many of those. Simply because I was like, I feel like my shirt would go with this drink. I had a really hard time choosing. I had decision fatigue. It was hard. It's like when you're role playing for that long, you realize you have to rely on the weirdest of decision making mechanisms. You're like, I don't know. Yeah, give me that one. I'd go with my shirt.
And what's something else that's interesting is that there's different versions of the same cocktails. Like, I love the Podchaser. Love the Podchaser. And there's a smoky version of it, where it's got a completely different, more complex flavor and whatnot. And it actually, the presentation, they come out with a dome and you lift it and the smoke billows and it's outstanding. So, always just talk to your chemist. I mean, that's what they call the bartender in the Sublight Lounge. The chemists are second to none. They're the best in the universe. They will not steer you wrong.
So my discovery in the Sublight Lounge was, so I had the amazing drinks, but my number one drink was espresso.
Oh. Interesting.
Because I discovered that if you just ask any of the chemists for an espresso, it comes, and it's A, great, B, in a cool little cup, and you can have as many as you want. What? And this is how I survived this experience of just being on at 200% for 48 hours.
Nice.
Because they just kept coming. And it's free.
I did not know that.
Neither did I.
No, my mind is blown.
See, I have my love of the coffee in the Crown of Corellia is well documented. I mean, just the damn coffee in the Crown of Corellia is amazing, but I had no idea you could just order espresso at the Sublight Lounge and keep them. That is magical.
I need to see Christine drinking one of those with a straw. So that's
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, always with a straw.
I think I should mention that one other thing that Zach was eating that was really good. Was that the grilled cheese and tomato or whatever?
The bubble grilled cheese and the tomato soup. But they weren't calling it tomato.
Yeah, that was
cute.
so
Red
good.
fruit.
Red fruit.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
so good.
That grilled cheese sandwich, they obviously cook it in a press, so the bubbles in the bread is very crispy, and it was amazing. Zachary, my 14-year-old, he loved that so much. I also have to give a shout out to the flatbread, the curry flatbread on the lunch buffet.
Unreal.
Yeah, it was so freaking good. I really wanted Patty to have it because, but we found out that it has chicken, so it wasn't vegetarian. But it was
I was
so
about
good.
to have it, and then I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much curry there was aboard because I thought I think Brian mentioned earlier, I was expecting like very lowest common denominator, like appeal to like a fifth grader palate because I'm thinking amusement park and things like that. But I was surprised to find like really amazing like curries and strange, flavors that you wouldn't expect. At least I wouldn't have expected from an amusement park experience, which is kind of what I had in mind going in.
One more thing. What was really cool is when, the buffet style, I actually got the chef to come out because I had mentioned to them that I was a vegetarian and, they had things listed on everything, but he still came out and he went through everything with me. And he goes, and I can always make you something else.
That's just the level of customer service that they have. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They offer it to you. So even if you have to ask, don't ever be concerned about asking because they are happy to make you happy. Yeah.
If anything, they'll be apologetic for not having figured it out on their own or something.
Yeah, completely.
They do have a full kids menu too, for those that would be traveling with kids. And it was hilarious to us every night. There was one little youngling. He was maybe 4 or 5 years old. And poor thing, would eat nothing but pizza. It was the only thing he would eat. But both nights, he literally sat down at the table And dad was Dano or Dado, and like he was like super into it, right? He was like practically a main character by the end of our cruise. But poor little youngling fell dead asleep at the table both nights. And like the servers that came out were so sweet about it. Like his parents would basically wake him up to eat pizza. And one night they brought him 3 pizzas, and this little bitty dude like crammed these 3 pizzas and then fell dead asleep again. And so like they obviously will cater to, if you have the 5th grade palate or less, like they'll cater to that too. But it was just pretty cute. The captain, in fact, noted the little youngling and said, "Oh yeah, we call that powering up."
Yeah, I went into it actually the opposite of Mark. When they started showing the pictures and stuff of the food, I'm picky enough that I was like, ugh, I don't know if I can. This looks all a little too fancy for me. I don't know that I'm going to be able to eat much of this. But I figured, whatever, it's 2 days, figure it out. But then to get there and to taste everything, the presentation is so beautiful that you don't realize how uncomplicated they have made the food. It's stunning. Just shocked and stunned.
Their combination of making it feel alien and exotic, yet be identifiable tastes and textures, they really, you can tell they did their homework. They must have cut and tried a zillion combinations to come up with these ones they did. But what a bunch of winners. But if I can just go back to one more point in the Sublight Lounge before we move on to our next topic, another little pro tip we've learned is that a lot of people order their drinks just to get the souvenir glass. Well, you can get, because they have 2 different kinds of souvenir glasses, you can get any drink in any glass, no matter whether the menu says you can or not. But the goblet glass they sell in the Chandrilla Collection gift shop on board the Halcyon, but it's not the same goblet. It looks the same. It's not the same as the one you get in the Sublight Lounge. It's smaller. It's got this different imprint on the bottom. So if you're really looking to maximize your Chandrilla barware, make sure to get it in the Sublight Lounge itself.
The other thing I'll say before we move on is I found the food on the second voyage significantly better than the first time. When we had the food the first time, the bantha beef was delicious because there's only so many ways you can cook that, and it was fabulous. But the shrimp was a little less than. Those bao buns with the multicolored, those were a little less than. The sauces were amazing the first time. Everything was just not. It didn't quite meet my expectations the first time. So when we came back the second time, I dialed down my expectations, and then they surpassed those. But I found the food the second time just to be amazing, and I wanted more of everything. Well, cool. Well, let's talk about another subject. Let's move away from the food, mainly because now I'm really hungry. But let's talk about the fact that social media is really harping on the cost. If you turn on YouTube, those of us who've watched some things on YouTube, we might see some things where people are complaining about the costs. And I think a lot of us, we've been talking, we're planning on coming back. What do you guys think about the cost and what the value proposition of the Star Cruiser is? So why don't we start with you, Alex? What do you think about the cost and what people are saying?
People spend a lot on cruises. And if you're going to take a high-end cruise, you're going to spend, I think, about the same that you'll spend on this. So it's a high-end cruise in space. And so this question of the cost keeps coming up in that people talk about it as the Disney hotel, or it's the Star Wars hotel at Disney World. But if we talk about it as it's a cruise on a cruise ship in space, that people spend, this is the cost, and you split it. It's not per person; it's per cabin.
Right.
So you could get, like for my party, we got 3 people in one cabin and 2 in another, and so it worked out really well. We were able to make it work as far as the cost goes. And for what you get, which is top-end Disney paid actors to give each person their own tailored adventure in the Star Wars universe, it's the best LARPing on this planet right now on a Disney-built set. I think it's totally worth it. If you can make the finances work out, it is totally worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It may be cost prohibitive to some, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth the price tag they have on it. You know, it would be great if they had an opportunity to make it, cost less, but what would that do to your experience?
That's
Right.
The experience you have. I think once you've been on Star Cruiser, I don't know that anyone would go back and go, I don't know, that was really worth the price. I can't imagine anybody walking off that ship and not being like, wow, that was worth every penny and more. I mean, yeah, and that's where I think part of the challenge is that people who haven't been on it are the ones that are posting about the incredible price tag and how much you have to pay. And here's Disney gouging again and all those kind of things. And it's like, but if you haven't done it, how do you know it's not worth the price?
I tell people all the time, Disney is all the magic you're willing to pay for.
I love that.
Because, so again, we live here within, a couple miles of the magic now because we're that nerdy. We've had friends for years that as we've been planning trips to Disney, that they see our photos, they see the experiences we have. Now, keep in mind, we are a dual income, no kid. So the experiences we can do, the times we can go, what we can afford to pay for is very different than somebody who might have a family of 4 kids.
Right.
It's a very different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it inexpensive? Absolutely not. Right. To
Right.
Alex's point, neither is a high-end cruise. Like if you went on a Disney cruise, it would easily be the same price. It's all about what is the experience you are looking for out of it. And is that something you can work out financially for yourself or not? But if you're talking value per dollar, how do you put a value on living out the dream you've had since, in our case, we were 5 years old?
Sure.
I was a 5-year-old little girl running around with Princess Leia buns. I showed a bunch of y'all the picture of that, right? 5-year-old little girl. I did not play with Barbie dolls. I still have my original Star Wars toys because Leia was so much cooler than Barbie. Living out that dream of being part of that story, being part of that galaxy far, far away, just living, I've got goosebumps talking about it.
Sure.
You can't put a price on that experience in my mind.
Well, kind of a point that's kind of, tangent to this is that people pay a definite premium to stay at a resort like the Grand Floridian, a top-end Disney World resort. And again, they're not even there in the room or even the resort for the vast majority of the time of their stay. They're in the parks. They're doing other things. On Galactic Star Cruiser, you're there the entire time, or you're on Batu doing things for Star Cruiser. So to me, the value proposition of Galactic Star Cruiser is absolutely warranted in comparison to, you can't compare it really even to a hotel. It's not a hotel. The fact that you sleep there is almost inconsequential to the experience. It's what you're doing when you're awake that costs all the money. And when they announced the cost, everyone kind of took a deep breath real quick. It was actually slightly below what Christine and I had been kind of forecasting in our heads. Mm-hmm. And again, we were just guessing because we didn't understand exactly what the content was going to be, but we had 2 years to save up for it, and we were going to do this. Mm-hmm. So when they announced the pricing, sure, it was like, oh well, it's high, but we were ready for it.
Yeah.
We sold some things on eBay. We're very fortunate to have an extensive Star Wars collection. We're like, I'll get rid of that to go on Star Cruiser. I'll get rid of that to go on Star Cruiser.
Mark, how about you guys?
When you talk about cost versus payoff, I don't think there's any doubt. After you get off, once you disembark, you're like, okay, I think that was worth it. I think entertainment is a luxury, and I think that's sad. And I think it's worth, mentioning that a lot of people come into the fandom of Star Wars through what are now cost efficient ways to entertain people: movies, video games, the kinds of things that you invest, $20 to $50 in, and you get 2 hours worth of entertainment out of, 2 to 10 hours. And that seems like a fair, exchange rate. But then there's these really great opportunities presented to you that are just out of reach. And that's a total bummer. And I kind of sympathize that it's inaccessible because it is very expensive. But at the same time, if you're talking about, is it worth it? Yes, without a doubt. If it's something that you can afford or save up or, split cost with other people or, sell the Savi hilts you already got to try to fund a new expedition, like, I don't know what it takes. Like, switch your collection, switch from Nintendo to Star Wars like I'm doing. Yeah, like I feel bad that there is angst over the price and that there are people who probably will not be able to experience it that might be more even hardcore fan than like I feel that I am. But if you want to talk about whether it's worth it, consider how much going to a movie cost this day, multiply that out by how many hours you were on the Star Cruiser and start to do some mental gymnastics and some math. And you'll realize that it's not really that crazy of a price. They could have done us dirty. Mm-hmm. And I think that they didn't intentionally. I feel like, of course, it feels like that way to some people and it feels personal because like there's this new awesome thing that I've loved my whole life and I can't get to it. Like that is super frustrating. But I think if you break it down and you're willing to look at it and, wink and nod every once in a while, because it is a vacation and it is entertainment, that it's not hard to justify putting the time in to save up the money if it's something you really want to do.
I will say I've heard many words here. The one word we keep saying is the experience. And never did I think in my life at 15-year-old Patty, when she was watching Star Wars, that she would have the adventure of her lifetime going on the Galactic Star Cruiser and being in space and being in an environment where I didn't even look at my phone. I didn't even know what was going on in the world. I was just so into the experience. It was worth every penny.
And it's amazing how many of us, I think, and by us, I mean other people that we've talked to, that you go into this experience going, okay, I realize that there's a cost involved, but this is a once in a lifetime experience. And so we've decided amongst ourselves that that's the cost we're going to pay. And then you get off of Galactic Star Cruiser and you go, well, that can't be a once in a lifetime experience. How do we figure out how to go again? So it's not even that you leave Star Cruiser satisfied that you've gotten your money's worth, air quotes, but that it's worth the price of admission again and again. I mean, that to me is mind blowing. That's what they've done.
I'm going to steal an Ian Malcolm quote from Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. And boy, we will find a way to get back on Star Cruiser at every opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it's like interesting because it doesn't, I feel satisfied from my experience. So I don't get that feeling, which I feel like some people have brought up about the price, where it's like, oh, well, they're going to hook you. They can't hook you at such a high price for an addictive, I have to come back. There's how many paths? How many times do I have to do this to, quote unquote, like get it all? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I don't think built to be an addictive experience. It just happens to be because it's so well done. That like I want to go back and do a different path, but I felt totally, if I were a reasonable person, maybe I could just stop.
Right.
But like I'm like, no, I'm gonna redo my character and start planning outfits for a trip I haven't even booked yet.
On the point of expense, if I can make an analogy, number one, food's included.
Right.
Like at Disney World, for a party of 4, you'll easily drop $1,000 on a high-end dinner if you decide to go that direction. Well, food's included on the Star Cruiser. But number 2, I think a good analogy is also dinner out and a Broadway show. Mm-hmm. So, in New York City, if you get really good tickets to a Broadway show, you're going to be getting close to $1,000 real easy. Like if you go to some of the new stuff that's really well known, mm-hmm. and then you go to dinner, add that in, it's suddenly for just 2 to 4 hours, you're spending something almost comparable to this 48-hour experience.
Yeah, that's a fantastic
That's
analogy.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I've just talked about this on a recent episode, so I'll keep it quick. But for us, it wasn't a 2-day experience. It was a 6-month experience. Mm-hmm. The planning for us was part of the fun. Now, not everyone goes into the detail and the depth and the preparation that we did, but a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And so we got 6 months worth of fun out of this. The value proposition for us was off the chart.
Brian, did you have anything to add about the value proposition?
Yeah, I will say when we saw the price, when it was initially announced, I think Nicole and I both kind of took a deep breath and said, we're Star Wars fans, so we're going to do it. Whether the value is there or not, we have to do it. I would say, like, if you're not at least a moderate Star Wars fan, I could see the value not really shining through. There's still a lot of great things, but being at least a moderate Star Wars fan up to most of us who are probably in the crazy Star Wars fan level, the value is so much greater than the cost. We talked for days afterward about tiny moments we experienced, tiny moments we saw others experience, and talking about comparing it to a dinner and a movie or dinner and a Broadway show, which I think are quite good comparisons. But even those are a lot more passive experiences.
Sure.
Like, you're witnessing the entertainment and it's being brought to you. On the Star Cruiser, you can be anybody. You can talk to anybody. You can make up your backstory and take things anywhere you want to go. And if you decide you want to go back for a second cruise, come up with a new character, and it's going to be completely different. Just so much value.
What I can just speak just strictly for Christine, Drew, and myself is we're fortunate enough. We've been places. We've real places. We've been around the world, all three of us. We've gone to far-flung, exotic, amazing places, and we just can't stop talking about this fake space voyage. And what an incredible recognition to what Disney's accomplished. That, I mean, this to me stands. This it's crazy to even say, but this stands up with real travel to real places as far as emotional resonance with me, and that's a stunning thing to have put on the table as an option for our entertainment. I mean, that's unreal.
I think about it every day. It's something that's I'm always thinking about. I keep things from the cruise in view so I can see it, so I can relive it as much as I want until I go back. And it's such an emotional thing for a lot of people. I mean, Christine, and your makeup and all that. But listening to your podcast, the LARPing with, I forgot her name,
Jen,
about her discussion about Leia and Carrie Fisher, I was crying listening to the podcast. It's just amazing.
So let's talk about that. Since we've all been on Star Cruiser, and since we're all kind of politely rabid about the subject, how do you think going on Galactic Star Cruiser has changed you in your day-to-day life? Starting with Mark.
So me personally, maybe I won't say too much because I think it's a good thing. I feel like I had a weird. Maybe it's not weird. Maybe you can all help me out here. I feel like my experience might have been weird because there was some kind of level of just like straight ego death. I don't know what else to call it, but like I don't consider myself an extremely extroverted person, but I'm not an introvert either. I wanted to have a look so that people would recognize me. I knew I would need to engage. I've role played, like I said, in tabletop gaming. So I felt like I kind of had my head wrapped around things. And then the moment it turned from what I expected out of Disney, which is characters on a balcony above me, 20 feet away. And I'm like, dang, that's cool. Like they are so close, closer than I expected even. And then they're like, okay, well, our first little vignette's over. And the captain comes walking down the stairs. I immediately had nearly a panic attack. I guess a creative panic attack or something. I don't know how to say it, but like I could not engage with anyone, but I was drawn to everyone. I needed something to push me past myself, and the only thing to do it was myself. All of this was spiraling in my head at the same time, and at the same time, I know that my wife is a huge Star Wars fan as well, but not this other stuff, the cosplay and everything. Like I said, we haven't really done it. So I didn't think that she necessarily was having anything other than a crisis herself and was going to pull me through it. So I was just felt the moment slipping away. And I was like, I'm not going to actually do this. I'm going to be passive and end up watching this whole thing happen. And having to break through all of that did something in my real life. And coming off of it, it's not that I wasn't, a very confident person or anything, but there's some new level to my just personality, I think, that came out of the experience of having to do this live action role play, the experience of feeling like I am canon. That was a weird thing for me to wrap my head around. Like, am I canon and something I love? Like, that's bizarre. And also the experience that everything was uniquely tailored to me. And then like disembarking and running into my friends being like, oh wait, you touched Gaia's case too? I was like, well, I'm jealous because she told, like, I was supposed to do that. How did you get your hand? And realizing that it was all kind of a sham meant to make me feel super special. And then getting back to real life and be like, damn it, I have to work on Monday? Like, it just, it hit me hard. And I know it's like a joke among us all. And we're all just kind of like, I feel like winking and nodding at each other as new people disembark every day. Like, I know you're going to feel it. It was amazing in a very real and palpable way that I did not haven't experienced out of any sort of entertainment in my life. I've connected with movies. I've cried over characters in books that I love. I haven't cried over myself as a character in something that I love. It was bizarre and wonderful. And I got off the ship and immediately started thinking about how I was going to change my character because of what he had experienced, because of what I had experienced. And I think that was the telltale sign. I was like, something happened here. Like, I'm reworking my character. He has friends now. I'm like building, websites. I want to do research about the ship. I want to get on TC's group and deconstruct it all and know how it works.
Right.
It was profound and weird and lovely and scary for the first 24 hours, maybe even. But I kind of loved it. And it's like, I think my wife said, and I think I've heard it on the podcast too, like, it had kind of a summer camp feel to it. Like when you go and you meet new friends that are strangers and you come out and you're like, oh, it's not hard to make friends. Like, I can be a real person. Like, I can do this, and like, I haven't done that since I was like 10 or 11 at camp. It was cool.
But yeah, that experience that you're describing is your own. And yet, like, I don't think anybody really understands how much it can change you, and thankfully change you for the better. Not just for you, but for the people around you. So same. Same.
What he said.
What Mark said.
How about you, Alex?
Well, the biggest change in my life is I don't shut up about Star Cruiser to everybody. But so for me, I'm a professor at Columbia University Teachers College, and I do a lot of research on schools and education and thinking about how to help schools and teachers and school leaders provide more engaging experiences through technology and instruction. And so for me, going on Star Cruiser, I was just not only utterly fascinated by the LARPing aspects themselves, but the technology as well, and how this immersive experience generator works. And so as soon as I got off, I started looking and researching at this world that I hadn't really explored before of immersive experiences. And so like Scott Trowbridge on his Twitter, I started following Scott Trowbridge, and he recommended a book, Immersive Storytelling, by Margaret Harrison, where if you want to know, she's talking about that too. She's talking about all of the immersive theatrical events. And so for me, it's actually really helping me think more about like my work, but also this idea of where immersive storytelling may be going. I've started seeking out more immersive storytelling opportunities. Like I live in New York City, so we have there's this hotel called Sleep No More immersive experience here that all the immersive storytellers like to talk about. Which is immersive Shakespearean work in many ways. And so, for me, it's been a lot of trying to convince people that, yes, go on Star Cruiser. It is the thing for you because it will wrap around you like your most favorite book and a warm blanket and a cup of cocoa. But at the same time, you'll be running as fast as you've ever ran because you've got stuff to do because you're the hero of the story. But then, this point that I've really started to think about where is immersive storytelling going and what could be a place for me or the people I know, or how can I just get smarter about this and participate more? And like on top of that, I've jumped back into Dungeons and Dragons. So I've started to really just get much deeper into this an active role-playing position.
Cool. Brian, how about you?
So before I answer the direct question of how I have changed since that, just wanted to say to Mark, when you asked the question of am I canon, I almost lost it because I hadn't entered my mind. And I think the answer is yes.
I think so, right?
Yep.
And that's
it is
amazing.
Definitely yes.
Right? Like that's something new for you to think about.
Yeah. So amazing. So for me, I am very much an introvert. I also forever have dealt with social anxiety. So there was a little bit of fear going into the environment. I knew that Nicole is the absolute opposite and will talk to everybody and, will improv like crazy. So I had that shield to start with.
Sure.
And it also didn't help that I had laryngitis the week before, so only half a voice, which is tough when you don't think you have a voice anyway. But so I was half a step behind Nicole, and she was being the shield, and she was initiating conversations, and I was sort of experiencing it all a little bit by proxy. And then the second day hit, and I think we were in our more formal attire, and I noticed I was walking with my back straighter and a little bit of a formal attire swagger.
Let's just say you were sexy as hell.
I agree with Nicole, by the way, just for the record.
And there was even one point where we were in the bar with Chewie and trying to figure out how he was going to escape. And I just left everyone because I saw stormtroopers walking outside and started having a conversation with them and slowly walking away from the bar so that Chewie would have a better escape route. And it seems like it was 15, 20 minutes later, I get a text from Nicole. Where the heck are you? She was with the captain, about to launch into a different special experience, but I was just gone and doing things and no anxiety, no nothing. It was fantastic. And I think I've carried some of that out as well because the reception was great. Nobody cared what I had going on inside. We were just all Star Wars folks. So, some of that came out with me and still with me. And one other note for folks like me, that have the introversion and trouble launching into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
The characters on the ship were so welcoming and so engaging that even after just a little bit of outreach, they turned it around and they were reaching out to me and to us as well. So you don't have to be completely on all the time and out of your comfort zone. You get those friends and connections quite quickly and they do a lot of the work for you.
All they want to know is you're willing to play.
Yep.
So if you ask one question, and it can be as simple as, like, what do you think about this, Captain? And you're off to the races.
Yeah.
Patty, anything from you?
I also am a D&D player, but I've never really done the deep role-playing side or trying to do some role-playing. But after this wonderful experience, I have a new campaign coming up in a couple of months, and I'm going to play a character that I've never played before. I'm going to play a druid, and I am going to role play that sucker. Never done that before. It's just usually just me speaking and, in the game, but I'm going to maybe even come up with a different style of how I speak, voice, different things, just to try something and see how it works. So that's changed me from the experience. In cosplay, I haven't done a lot of cosplay, but I've been the person that always dresses up at Halloween, different things like that. And now I can't wait to make another outfit, another character, do more of it, make things. So that's what I've changed from the experience.
That's cool.
You look good in blue hair.
Thank you.
See, something I have to add that Star Cruiser does for folks, and I saw it with Patty, is it pushes so many of us to be creative in ways that we didn't know we had. Patty, she got into 3D printing. She got into designing.
Mm-hmm.
She 3D printed several elements of her costume, and she didn't know how to do any of that before Star Cruiser.
I made my own holster. I did EVA foam, learned how to do it. I made the holster. I printed out, and I'm loving it. Oh, that was another thing I'll tell you. So I printed out coins and little things to bring to the Galactic Star Cruiser to hand out when something good came up. And I have to just tell a story really quick about the little boy that was the Mandalorian. Do you remember seeing the little boy that was a Mandalorian? I had printed out a Beskar and I painted it, and it looked like it was really it. And I'm like, I'm going to give that to the little boy. So I went up to him, his parent, nobody was around. I just went up to him and I said, hey, I've got something for you. And I pulled it out and I put it in front of him. And I'm like, you do know what this is, right? And he was just like, and he said what it was. And I said, that's for you. He'll never forget that.
Right.
He was like floored that I gave him something that I had made. And it made me feel so good. I was also handing out coins in the Sublight Lounge. Here you go. It was amazing.
Nicole.
One of the ways that my life has been changed is that apparently I can now hold a conversation with a Wookiee. Who knew? that was a new thing. There was a moment with the captain at the captain's table that she and I had a conversation about joy. And she talked about how powerful joy is, and that sharing joy just exponentially increases that power. And when I got back to Earth and I was at my job the next day, I just took a new role at work, and I'm working on culture. Like, how do we change our culture? And my new director, who is absolutely fabulous, she wanted to hear all about it. And she said, okay, the joy that you feel right now, this is how we want to help our workforce feel. We want them to feel the joy in the experiences that we deliver for them and that they get to be a part of. And it was just so profound that we had the captain was just my favorite. She and I just totally bonded in so many ways, but just that connection, that thread of joy, because I know that as I was sharing all the moments that we felt, even with people who were not Star Wars people, they still were catching that joy. Mm-hmm. And just think about, every time there's a new group that's coming off this Star Cruiser of 200-300 people, however many it holds, going out and passing that joy on. And I've got goosebumps just thinking about that. What an impact that could have.
Wow.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
We're going to pivot to another one of my very, very favorite topics to talk with folks, as it's well known throughout our episodes, is we all love Star Cruiser. Super fans, one and all. But what would you change if you had a magic wand and an unlimited budget and all the time in the world? It's just kind of fun to see, what did you notice? What would you like to see them kind of shift into? Let's just kind of go around the room. Let's start. Mark, what would you change about Galactic Star Cruiser?
I think overall, I would like to see things change over time, which would be just to take feedback. Something like this is a wild and varied beast. And I think it's going to take a lot of wrangling until a majority of people are, hitting the sweet spot. Just things I'm interested in are like the potential for reskins, what I would, I guess, refer to as seasons of Star Cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I would look, and I'm not even considering that a change. I feel like I'm cheating because I think that is something they have always intended and are already in the works on. And you guys have even touched on in the past how easy it might be to do some soft entrances into that kind of alteration of the whole gestalt of the Halcyon. So I think what I would like to see is opportunities for things to change organically based on how people interact with the experiences. If it's too hard to find out how to be a Jedi, they can adjust things. And if there is a day when Gaia is not performing, but perhaps there is some other third party outside of First Order resistance that is aboard the ship with their crew, I see a lot of potential there. So I think I would just change the variety that is available in storylines.
Brian, what would you change about Galactic Star Cruiser with a magic wand?
So I'm not sure if this is necessarily about the cruiser itself, but if there was either in the boarding process or even the pre-boarding, bit more communication toward the helpful tips on how to get the most out of the experience. We had many really personal experiences, and I know we talked at one point how many people get to do that, how many, and I know that the crew does that a bunch, and they pick out a lot of people and a lot of great experiences. But I think of families that may not have known to just be in the atrium a bunch and talk to people and get involved in things, and just seems like there's an opportunity to miss a lot of the joy and the value that could come out.
Patty, how about you?
I a little bit what Brian said about a little bit more tips and tricks for folks, because I know that some folks didn't even know what to do. But I think it would be cool, like our excursions to Batuu, and you got the bounty hunters down there, the whole thing with, if we could use the bands that we had to be part of that and have it get into the story somehow. Because I know that, the missions are one thing, but I think that whole bounty hunter experience could get incorporated with that. And it's sad that everything that you do, if you don't take screenshots, it does disappear. I wish there was a history of what we did that we could take with us as part of the experience. So when we go home, we can look at this and say, oh my God, I did this, this, and this. I think we sort of lose a little bit of that when we leave. So I think that would be helpful.
Patty and I were in the back seat of our rental cars. We were on our way to NASA, frantically taking screenshots. and I will say that's when we figured out that the Android experience keeps things a little longer than the iOS experience does.
I got lucky. Mine was still in there, and I got everything, at least everything for the entire second day.
Yeah. I had that idea literally. I was like, the second I get off, I'm going to, what? It was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And like we've learned, is they actually purge day one messages at the start of day two. So if you want those messages, you have to screenshot at the end of each day. Quick pro tip. But Nicole, what would you change about Galactic Star Cruiser?
I think one of the only things I would change that's different from what others have said is sort of that last morning. We were so in character, right? And then here we are the last morning, and it was the first time I looked at Christine. I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. Look at you. You're not green.
You're not green.
Which was nice, right? But it was just so we just kind of let down after everything we had experienced. And so just having it sort of extend more fully to the point that you're off the ship, that maybe a few of the characters would still be around, or just something, that would kind of keep that magic going until you board that last transport pod back.
Nicole, the word is jarring.
Yes.
It like takes you out of the moment. It's like you're just like somewhere else. You're not still there.
It's a little like going to the Orlando airport security after you've been through Disney World, right? Like when you're so used to the beauty and the wonderful queue and the care of the mouse, right? And then you hit the Orlando airport and you're like, okay, vacation's done. It was a little bit like what that last morning felt like. And just to keep the magic a little longer.
Yeah, I wish they would keep the cast longer into night 2. It's like, everybody go look at the shiny stuff over here, and then, everybody's gone. It's like, what? I didn't get to hug anybody and tell them how awesome they were, and the cast just disappears. It would be great if the cast was able to hang out at least for a couple of hours after that, and I know they've had a long day, but it would be great if they could stay at least until, a couple hours after the finale. And then maybe the next morning as you're disembarking, maybe it's just the captain and Lenka that just say, thank you so much. And we hope that you'll, come cruise with us again. Sorry for the mishap, that kind of stuff. Just to, even if you're not in makeup and in costume, at least it kind of puts that cherry on top where you're like, no, I'm going to miss you guys.
I want Croy to be there right as you get on the shuttle going, my bad.
Wouldn't it have been nice if they came to have a drink with us in the bar or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, throw Lenka on the hollows, the big in the atrium. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
Yeah.
A goodbye message. That wouldn't be cost prohibitive, and the actors would still be allowed to go home.
Yeah,
finally.
that would be wonderful.
Oh, that is a dynamite solution. Instantly implementable. Oh, that's gold right there.
Yeah.
You can have that one, Disney.
So, Alex, how about you?
I've got a few ideas. One, so everybody always talks about we need more pictures because you need to be in the moment. And so being in your camera, taking pictures, the CSL experience is good. But one of the ideas that I've liked for a while is, well, how do you do like more of the PhotoPass work? Well, Wraith Cole has hired holophotographers to cover the intergalactic or galactic superstar Gaia's event on the Halcyon's 275th voyage, right? So you've got these photographers all over the place on day one when everybody's dressed up because they came on board that way. They take the pictures and everything comes in your PhotoPass, and Disney makes an extra $70 from everybody. Number 2, the data pad, like everybody said, but everything you do, all the fetch quests and really interesting quests on Batuu, as has been said on this podcast before, they don't really get you very far. They do stuff, but it would be really great if on board, some of what goes on in the data pad comes up in the consoles throughout on board.
Nice.
So that's a programming task. It doesn't take any cast time. Yes, it takes someone to program it all out and to make sure it works. But once it's implemented, it just happens. So maybe there's more areas inside the consoles that you can get into once you've gone deeper into those quests that are throughout the data pad. And that would just be something to give people like me who went super deep trying to scan everything on Batuu and see what I could get. Give us just that one extra little thing. And then number 3, so on our voyage for our bridge training, we had 2 guys on our bridge training who were dressed perfectly as First Order.
Okay.
Just utterly perfectly. Halfway through, they got kicked off the bridge because the cast came in and they're like, "You're First Order. You can't be here." And we voted as a group on the bridge and kicked them out.
Oh, that's awesome.
So these 2 guys got kicked off. They didn't get to see half the bridge training.
Wow.
And then they went and got hammered at the Sublight Lounge afterwards. And so like I was, in full character and in my garb, and I went up to them. I tried to role play through with them a little bit. And then I went up to Croy. And there just wasn't much of a connection by the story engineers for people who want to go deep first order. And I understand why there's no real dark path.
Sure.
As far as my understanding goes, from what's going on with the storylines, but more for people who want a deeper first order experience. Some people come in full first order garb, and I know there's the work with Croy. It seems like there's more for the Resistance, which makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
But just more there would be, I think, really quite interesting, especially given people have gone way down the rabbit hole on the video games and the books and all the different really interesting facets of the darker side of things. Right, there is a conversation to be had there between who's. I mean, I'm watching. The other thing that's changed for me is I'm watching through the Clone Wars, all of the entire cartoon series, and wow, is it the Jedi just making one mistake after another? Because the good guys, who are the good guys? It's cloudy, and couldn't there be more of that kind of conversation, which might be an interesting build out for the future?
Wow, that's great.
That is great.
Yeah.
Because something that they are going to kind of hit a brick wall, because from what we have seen talking to a lot of folks is, people's Voyage 3 is when they typically say, okay, I've done the good guy stuff. I really want to go first order. Not just across the board. We've heard from so many people that they hit, we've done the good guy stuff. We want to do the bad guy stuff, but how much of that is there? Now, these folks that got kicked off the bridge, there's two ways they could have taken it. They could have been really, miffed that they were missing some bridge training, or they could have been super, super in character and loved the fact that they were getting voted off. I'm not sure how they took it,
Right.
But they do need to make that experience, as one of our previous guests said, more thick for the First Order, in my opinion. Just, I'm fully intending to engage with all of the characters as the First Order side this next voyage. I've got patter in my head. I've got ways to engage them that I think are really going to be fun to play with. But there's not a whole lot organically that puts me as a First Order character in these crosshairs to play with this character, to play with that character. So yeah, I agree with you completely. That would be an interesting thing. Something else I'm thinking about that I would like to see changed is just some physical, tangible object. Like, there's always that's the fetch quest on Batu. Get the schematics for the TIE Echelon. Okay, that's super, super cool. But how about at some point, if you go through to the end of that, we get some inexpensive USB drive that's got just a JPEG of a schematic on it. That we get to, we have to hand it there, but they then Wraith, scans it and hands it back to us. And we have some, $5 trinket, like when we went to D23 that one time, we went to this Music of Galaxy's Edge experience, and they handed everyone that went to this, this panel, this in-universe beautiful data card like Princess Leia uses to put in R2 with the plans, and it had the entire DJ Rex playlist from Oga's Cantina. But everyone got this beautiful, tangible thing that I just treasure, and we took another one and drew one. It's fantastic. Something like that one of these fetch quests gives you something that you can take home and look at and say, I got that blueprint, I got that schematic, whatever it is, and here it is. And I would love to see them implement that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I feel like I kind of wish I could change my answer, because I feel like you did a better answer because like I've been trying to do that. Like I set out to do make a game experience on a website I was making based around my character and everything. And like my main goal is I kept lamenting the fact that like I could rack up credits and stuff on Batu, but there was no, and I'm racking up badges and things in the game, and there was no physical payout. I understand why, but I kept thinking like, why am I not going to guest services or the shop and showing them, hey, I have earned this badge? And then they bust out a case and I'll still pay $9.99 for it. And it's another Disney badge that is just that badge in physical pin form.
Yeah.
Like that would be
I
awesome.
like that idea.
Absolutely.
And I was like, that sounds like low hanging fruit to me, honestly, like something that they could do. So like part of my whole emotional come down is I was like, all right, like I'll do it if I have to. Like if I have to make that, I'll try. Like I'm no Disney, but like I see so much potential and stuff like that, and I kind of wonder if they're just everything's just still kind of beta test. Like they have more coming. I can't imagine they haven't thought of that.
Right.
And they're not building up to something, but like what if your credits turn into a coupon? I'm going to the CSL shop and each credit's worth a penny. Why not?
Well, yeah, even if whenever you
like building an economy is a disaster of an idea, but they could do something with it, Like I'll pay for a pin, but I have to earn that pin.
Yeah.
The same way I had to get my artifact. I had to know what to do. I had to go in. I got turned down once. We had to come back again. Like,
Well, I do want to go back really quick talking about taking the path of the First Order. Part of me wonders if, and I don't know if you guys experienced this on your cruise, but I know because the group of people that tend to follow the First Order is fairly small compared to those that are traveling with, Wraith or with Lenka or with the captain or with Sammy. I wonder if that's almost kind of a crowd control thing, that if they don't make it like the exuberant, exciting, fantastic path for you to take, at the end, whenever they lose, it's not a crowd that they have to manage to kind of be like, simmer down, kids. We know we know Croy lost, but let's not go crazy in the atrium. It's more of a, handful of 24 people going, oh, darn it, as opposed to everybody kind of going, rebel, grab Croy, kick everybody out. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I wonder if that's a thought that they had to try to keep it a little tamer and maybe not as exciting to follow that path.
Yeah, can you imagine if a whole cruise of people was all like overwhelmingly First Order?
Yeah.
But again, that's why they have the crowd control measures. I mean, once certain experiences hit a certain capacity, they cut them off whether someone wants to get in there or not. I mean, they do that for the Jedi, they do that for Resistance, Scoundrel anyway. So that's interesting. That's a good comment. But at some point, for I don't want to say replayability because it's but for kind of Galactic Star Cruiser replayability, I'm going to go deep First Order next time, and I'm just hoping that it's as rich of an experience as the first two. And I don't think the content is there, but I'm prepared to kind of plus it up in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
That's an interesting observation. But I mean, they could even do stuff like just another addition is we know, like Alex said, there's a droid they designed. Just like SK620, there's a droid they designed that got cut through, at some point of development. Let's see. I mean, I would love, again, I've gone about this ad infinitum, but I'd love to see a character like Bosk, a Trandoshan. If they can do Wani, they can do a Trandoshan. I'd love to see, other people have said like a 21B, medical droid or some protocol droid walking around. That's supremely accomplishable, but a protocol droid walking around would be sensational. Well, something fun that we kind of send out a pre-questionnaire to folks just to kind of get an idea of your history with Star Wars, with Star Cruiser. And one of the questions that we kind of ask, if you remember, is if you could distill Galactic Star Cruiser into a 5-word phrase. Tell you what, let's start with Alex. 5-word phrase for Galactic Star Cruiser.
Be a Star Wars hero.
Nice. That's awesome. That's great.
Nicole.
Living out my childhood dream.
Mwah. Oh, Patty.
Absolute joy.
There we go. With 3 words to spare, and you nailed it. Mark.
I said it was a lovingly curated, transformative entertainment experience.
That's cool.
Oh,
yes.
Brian, bring us home.
Experience of a lifetime. Wow. I had to use all 5.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this Sublight Circle, guys. It was a pleasure to meet you all. As Sammy would say, I don't think we could have done this without you guys.
Well, thank you so much to Alex, Nicole, Brian, Mark, and Patty for taking the time to join our Sublight Circle. What a fun conversation. And you know what? We got to make this a trilogy. So look for another episode of the Sublight Circle in the future. But in the meantime, if you want to join a future episode of the Sublight Circle, Christine, where can folks get in touch with us?
Well, happily, we've already had a couple of people reach out that will be guests on our next episode. But please email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com and mention that you would like to join the Sublight Circle.
Well, where else can they find us online?
You can also find us on Twitter at Halcyon_heroes, on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, and on YouTube at Heroes of the Halcyon.
Well, it's always fun to shoot the poodoo with all the Star Cruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast.
Sublight!